Today I'm going to show you I'm going to go through how to make a song using only samples, and it's going to be for electro style. So this is going to be an electro style song. Every bass line in here is used from synth samples. So what I mean by synth samples is if you've ever bought sample packs, you might find sections that say bass stabs or bass hits, and there'll be little short clips of bass sounds which you can then load into a sampler and use as a synth. So this entire clip that I'm about to play you is made from synth stabs and bass stabs. So I'm gonna play a clip for you, and then I'm gonna show you what I did so you can then make a song using synth samples. Okay, so I'm going to start with this bass line right here, which is loaded in this NNXT. Just kidding, that's the wrong synth. I'm going to start with this synth right here. So I'm going to solo it, and you'll hear what I'm talking about. Okay, so it's that synth. And what I did was I opened a brand new NNXT, and I clicked the open signal, and I chose the bass sound that I wanted, and this bass sound sounds like this. But when I first loaded it, it did not have any distortion on it at all. Let me pull this down a bit so you can see a little bit more. So it sounded just like, wait, and let me take off this. This is what the bass synth sounded like at first. It's not very heavy. So the first thing I did was I created a Scream 4 distortion unit, and I took the damage down quite a bit to around 32, and I put it on Warp. Now Warp is a really cool distortion unit for bass synths because it does not take away much of the bass sound, but it adds a lot of dirt and grit to it. So take your second parameter and bring it to about 84. Now if you were to bring it all the way over, it would be a little bit grittier, but all the way down, it's not going to sound great. I think the closer you are from, let's say, 50 to 100, this is the zone you want to be in. But for this synth, I did it at around 84, 86. And then the parameter 1, I have all the way over at 127. Now you can do some minor EQing. I had the bass up a little bit, the mids up a little bit, and the highs peaking out on top. And yeah, that's the only distortion unit I used for the main synth. Now to make this synth a little bit wider, what I did was I created a, what is it called, UN16 unison. And I took the detune and I brought it down to about 22, and I took the wet and I brought it, the dry wet, and I had it at around, let's say, 42. And I put it on 4 voice counts. So this isn't going to detune the synth very much, but it's going to widen it up. You'll get a little bit more stereo width, and I think it's cool to give stereo width to bass, but you got to be careful with it because if you widen it too much, you're going to get weird flanging effects, and the bass will not sound that good. So you want to do very minor widening. Next thing I did was I added a little reverb. So just add it. You can add whatever you want, but basically that's all I did this synth. So if you listen to it now, it sounds pretty big. It sounds a little bit dirtier. Now to really bring out that presence, you're going to want to do create effect. You're going to want to go to dynamics and go to basses and click on nastier bass. Now take a listen now. You really got a big bass. So at first that synth sample sounded like a tiny little bass pluck, and now it's a full-on synth, so you can play it on your keys like so. Yeah, so that's all I did for this bass. Let's take a look back at this song. So now, as you can see, these are my notes for that bass synth. They are 16th notes just going all the way up, and I have a pitch bend bringing them up slowly. I also did some other distortion effects with it, but that's not really important to the bass line. So let's listen to the synth that comes in right around here. Okay, so The bass that I used was, this is the bass that you're hearing that kind of filters in. So what I did for this was, I did another NNXT and I loaded another bass shot into it. And I put on another distortion unit at warp with pretty much the same settings. Made it a little bit dirtier. I also did a minor unison. I pretty much the exact same thing I did for the last one and added the nastier bass. Now, in a lot of today's basically complex electro songs, what you're going to hear is you're going to hear tons of different synth stabs like this one that are going to be getting filtered in instead of just hitting. So if I didn't have that filter, it would just sound like this. But with that filter, you're going to get... Sorry, let me solo that. So as you can hear, it really sweeps in instead of just comes in all at once, which is really cool. The only other things I have in this song are which are both also just synth samples that I loaded in the NNXT and I filtered in slowly. So I think if you've ever been wondering how to create this complex sound, this song is not very complex, but it's the same principles. Is you're gonna have a bunch of different synth samples and you're just gonna be laying them out and filtering them in at different times. You're gonna get that sweeping effect. So I really recommend doing that. I hope that this tutorial was helpful. I know it's short and not much was going on in it, but I just wanted to show you guys what you can do with synth samples as far as bass lines go, because I know a lot of people use them for Dutch synths. I have a tutorial about how to use it for Dutch synths, but not many people know that you can really just load these bass samples into a sampler and add some distortion to it and really turn it into a fat synth. You don't have to create the synths yourself because there are some great synth samples out there. Alright guys, see you next time.